This is episode 6 of the Alumni Talks podcast. We're here with Joe Dallas. I'm joined by Benjamin Cooney. I am Skylar Ross, and from the Mississippi Beta chapter of Sigma Phi Epsilon. So, how's your day going so far, Mr. Joe?
So far, so good. Thanks for having me, and glad to be with you guys.
Yes, sir. Good to hear it. So, just kind of getting started, how'd you end up at Mississippi State? What was your childhood like?
So I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, and Mississippi State was the school that I always wanted to go to. I grew up a Mississippi State fan, so went to Byram High School, which was just outside of Jackson, and then Hines Community College for 1 year, and then ended up at Mississippi State my sophomore year.
Okay, nice. And when you got to college, how did that rush process look like for you? What made you decide you wanted to join a fraternity and SIGEP specifically?
Yeah, well, my rush process was probably a little different than a lot of people. I actually pledged SAE when I went through rush. Started pledging there, kind of figured out that wasn't the place for me. It wasn't the place that God wanted me to be. Had a lot of friends that were SIGEPs that I met throughout my freshman year and also through summer rush. And so started talking to those guys again, ended up getting a bid that spring. And it just felt like home. SIGEP is where I should have started in the fall, but ended up taking me a little bit longer to get there. But I'm glad I ended up at SIGEP.
Absolutely.
I just have a few questions. When you came to state, what was your intended major?
So my intended major was civil engineering. That didn't last very long. I think it lasted for maybe a semester, and then after that, I got into a history major, which I ended up getting a degree with, and ended up being a teacher and coach after that.
Awesome.
Where were you teaching at?
So I was a teacher coach at Brotherhood Christian in Memphis. That was my first stop, and then my wife and I moved back to Jackson, and I was at Jackson Prep in Jackson for a couple of years.
Nice. So when you joined SIGEP, obviously you ended up at SAE first and finding your home over at SIGEP. So what made you want to actually get involved within the chapter, with you being the rush chair and eventually the president?
Yeah, I think, the camaraderie of the guys was incredible with my pledge class. And we were kind of going through a flux of, we were moving out of the old house. We were starting to build the new house. And it just seemed like there was a lot of synergy there and a lot of excitement. And I wanted to be a leader, and I wanted to help SIGEP grow. And I knew one of the first ways I could do that was by being a rush chairman. So was very fortunate to do that. Right after getting initiated, I was rush chairman, did that for 2 years. It was really kind of dicey the first year because we were actually rushing out of the hump. So the President's Club at the hump was where we rushed out of because we didn't have a house.
Right.
So that was a little dicey that year, but we ended up with some really good guys, some good, strong guys that wanted to be a part of the chapter. And then I ended up being the rush chairman our first year in the house, in the new house where you guys are now. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, we had a great pledge class, big pledge class, and that kind of helped us to ascend to new heights in Mississippi State.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of a similar situation to that we've been in the past few years with us moving back to campus. And those first years we're back without the house, having to recruit all these guys without the house, and then having the facility and the house. Our rush classes have been a lot bigger. We're growing very rapidly on campus.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything? I didn't have anything next.
Okay. Just basically, so being a president, like going into graduation, about to go into your career, what did when you're walking across that stage for graduation, what do you think SIGEP meant to you then?
I'm a sales manager now at Novo Nordisk Pharmaceuticals, and I think a lot of the leadership traits that I grew into started by being president at SIGEP. You have some authority, but you're not really leading with authority. You're leading peers. So you're really learning to work with people as opposed to being over them. And, that I honed my leadership skills being a president at SIGEP, and the guys were great. I mean, we had a tremendous group of young men that were actives at that time, had a really strong pledge class. And just the synergy of the guys working together, I think helped me mold me into the leader that I am today.
Absolutely.
So how did SIGEP fulfill your needs as a college student?
So I think one thing is the group of friends that I had were very motivated by academics. So there was an accountability process there. I mean, we uh, we didn't take it lightly, guys not making grades. Like if someone was struggling in school, we would rally around them, help them. We would have study halls for not only pledges but for actives as well. Because we had some really smart guys. I would not consider myself as one of the smart guys, but I was able to lean on a lot of guys for some academic help. So we held each other accountable because we took a lot of pride in that in the GPA that we had.
Absolutely. You mentioned feeling led by God towards SIGEP. Did SIGEP fulfill any of your needs as a religious man? Or?
It did. I tell you, praying with your brothers is a really powerful thing. And there were times where we were going through struggles individually, where a group of us would get together and pray. We had our exec meetings on Sunday nights. We would always have a time of prayer where anyone could pray, and it definitely strengthened my faith, praying with my brothers and seeing them pray as well.
Yes, sir.
Got anything following that?
Not particularly. You mentioned your leadership qualities as a president helped further your career. Were there any other aspects of the fraternity that you feel prepared you for your career and following college?
Yeah, I think this may sound a little strange, but the social aspect helped as well. Being in pharmaceutical sales it's a very social industry, so it's something where you need to be able to move and shake a little bit and get to know people, and that was something. I think the social side of things, whether it be mixers or things of that nature, really helped me out as well. So just it kind of helped me mature socially as well, being a part of SIGAP.
I completely agree.
So how's your career going? You mentioned that you're in the pharmaceutical sales business. How did that come about? Like how did you get to where you are today? And what's next for you, do you think?
Yeah, I was a teacher and coach for 4 years, and then I went into outside sales with a family business in Jackson. And then I had a good friend of mine that was not a SIGEP, but a good friend of mine was in pharmaceuticals, and he was like, "Hey, you ought to look at this. I think you'd be good at it." So I started with Merck. I guess it was 16 or 16 and a half years ago. I was a sales rep for Merck in the state of Mississippi. Then moved over to Novo Nordisk as a sales rep. Was a trainer for a year in the state of Kentucky. So moved my family to Louisville, Kentucky, and then became a manager in Louisville, Kentucky. And now we live in Nashville, Tennessee, where I've been a manager for 10 years. So it's been a fun ride. I've enjoyed pharmaceuticals. There's never a dull moment in pharmaceuticals, and I work with some great people. My sales team is a tremendous group of people, and even though I lead them, I think of them more as peers because they're such great individuals and work so hard.
Absolutely. That's good to hear. So we kind of touched on what SIGEP meant to you when you were in college. So after going through all this and having a successful career, what would you say SIGEP means to you now? And what do you think the future of the fraternity as a national whole and this chapter specifically looks like going forward?
Yeah, I think what it means to me is brotherhood. Most of my grooms when I got married were SIGEPs. Um, my wife was a DG. I met her through one of my SIGEP brothers. So I've never forgotten that. I mean, it's always. I'm not gonna say I wouldn't have met my wife if I'd not been a SIGEP, but definitely that appears to be what God's plan was for me to meet her as a SIGEP. So. Um, I try to keep up with you guys a little bit on Instagram. I know there were some rough moments there for a little while, but I was driving around campus several weeks ago, Skylar, and that's when I emailed you because I saw the website and I saw you guys were back in the house. So, I think the sky's the limit for you guys. If you do the right things, you make the right decisions, and first of all, you care about each other. You care about your brothers. You'll go a long way. You will do some amazing things as a chapter, and I think that's what we did in my time there. We showed that we cared about each other and we had each other's backs, and we held each other accountable. I mean, there were times where I made bad decisions where some brothers had to come up to me and say, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing that, right?" let's talk about that. Let's help each other out. So I think as long as you guys do those things, the sky's the limit for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, brotherhood's really important still even today. I mean, I know all the guys in the house. I know I'm trying to learn most of the guys outside of the house, some of our new members, and getting close with these guys means the world to me. If I didn't have the kind of friendships I have here, I don't know where I would be in college. My major wasn't, certain when I got here, but having the mentorship of the people around me, seeing what they go through and the kind of classes they take, it helped me figure out where I wanted to be and where I wanted to go.
Well, much the same kind of happened with me after depledging SAE. I was kind of a little lost. I didn't know if I wanted to stay at Mississippi State. I didn't know what the future held for me. And like I said, some guys that I met through Summer Rush kind of surrounded me and reintroduced me to the chapter, invited me up to some things later in that fall year. And I was like, man, this is where I belong. This is home for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit more on that brotherhood aspect. What would you say your relationship with the guys that you were in that chapter with? Are you still in good contact with a lot of these guys, or how's that look like for you?
Yeah, several of them, and we'll get together at sporting events from time to time. And so yeah, probably not as much in touch with them as much as I would like to be. And hopefully you guys will have some alumni events where I can get back down there and see some of those guys, because I do think there's a desire from. It's hard for me to call myself an old guy, but at 50 years old, I guess to you guys I am an old guy. I think some of us old guys would love to come back, and and I think my group is a little special because we kind of felt like we built the house. I mean, one of my good buddies, Robert Robinson, who lives in Birmingham, he subbed out a lot of the stuff with the house. I mean, he's an engineer, works for Brassfield and Gorey in Birmingham, and he knows a lot about building, and he did a lot of stuff on that house. And I learned a lot from him through watching that house go up. So I think a number of us that were there during that period of time, we take a lot of pride in that house. And I saw online the other day, it's still the biggest house on campus and one of the largest ones in the SEC. So that was intentional. I mean, we wanted it to be that big, even though there were times it was hard to feel. We still wanted that prestige of it being the biggest house, and we're glad to see that it still is.
Yeah, you touched on having trouble filling the house. It's definitely still an issue at times, but I think we're kind of getting past that, especially with our larger and larger rush classes each year. Hopefully, we should be fairly well going forward.
It seems like even now we share many of the same experiences, and part of that makes me proud to say I'm a SIG that I'm part of like a lasting experience. It's not something that changes so much over time that I don't have that connection with the people who've gone through the same things as me, who've experienced some of the same ritual and meaning, and have just been a part of this house and this brotherhood and this chapter. Oh, there was something you said earlier that I wanted to touch on. I forgot. Oh, yes. Do we have a set date for that alumni event?
Yeah, so I was going to circle back to that. We have alumni involvement is definitely something that we've kind of struggled with recently, and something that we're really trying to push now, which is why we created this position, my position, the VP of Alumni Relations. So we're really trying to push that, have more of these events, because we know you guys want to be involved. We want you guys to be involved. We want to see you guys again. So like going forward this semester, I believe April 14th, we'll be sending out those formal invites soon, but having our annual alumni crawfish. So something that, everybody down south, we're in the south, we enjoy crawfish. So
We used to have a little bit of crawfish when I was a member as well. I can remember that brings up a really fun story. We used to go to Laurel, Mississippi, which is where my wife is from. We had a lot of guys from Laurel back when I was there. And Kyle Parrish, who lives in Memphis now, was kind of the ringleader of getting the crawfish. And we would take kiddie pools down to Laurel, Mississippi, and fill them up with crawfish and bring them back. So, and it's a pretty good trip to Laurel from Starkville. I can't believe the crawfish made it back alive, but they always did. Kyle knew what he's doing, and we would always cook crawfish, sausage, corn, I mean, put onions in there, and we'd have the best time eating crawfish together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kind of touching on that, some of the things that traditions that you carried on throughout the years, for like the Brotherhood Retreat, Lake Tiacata, all these type of things. What do those like venues specifically kind of mean, like for you guys back then, and for to have us still going to these venues and having those same kind of events even today?
Yeah, we used to do a leadership retreat at Tiacata, and that was a lot of fun. We kind of grew together and formed as an executive team, because usually there was always a little bit of turnover on the executive team, so you'd want to bring people in and kind of say, hey, here's our goals for the year, and this is what we're trying to accomplish from Rush through our social agenda and through building up the Brotherhood. So we definitely did Tiacata. Wild West was really big. I guess you guys probably still do Wild West. And
Little differently.
I remember the first fort that we built at the new house. It was incredible, and I wish I could find the picture that was circling around that Saturday night party that we had, because there were people beyond the walls, kind of back out past, I guess, where the volleyball court is. Just people for days, because everybody wanted to come to SIGAP House and see what was going on because of that structure. And once again, those civil engineers and those guys that I mentioned earlier, they had their hands all over that thing. It was going to be built like a brick house. I mean, that a tornado could have come through the house, may have gone down, but that fort wasn't going anywhere. So those were some really good times. It's good to see those things perpetuate through the years and stay a tradition.
Yes, absolutely. Wild West is definitely something that's still happening. A little bit more philanthropic is the word I'm looking for there. But so we're hoping to have a pretty big and successful Wild West coming up this year. It's definitely something that plan to go forward and become one of the biggest events on campus.
Mhm.
But also, you kind of touched on it. It was kind of the same thing that our vision is. You know, SIGAP was the place to be. SIGAP was the place everybody wanted to be.
Mhm.
We take a lot of pride in that now. Like we still believe that, and it's kind of what we push. So, if I could ask you, as we kind of start to wrap up here, what if you could leave a message for someone who's going through Rush as a freshman? What kind of message would you leave for them about SIGAP?
Yeah, I started with my story about how I pledged something else and depledged, and the guys that I met, that I formed a relationship during the summer, didn't let me go. I mean, they didn't say, "Hey, look, man, you decided you wanted to be an SAE, so forget you, move on." They were true friends. It was a true bond, and so I hate to throw brotherhood out there so much. It sounds like a cliche, but it really was. I mean, it was really a group of guys that just latched onto me and cared about me, and I get the feeling that it's the same way that it is now. I mean, and I know Chad Dacus very well, who I believe is kind of your advisor now, and I know Chad's all about brotherhood. And you need brotherhood for a lot of different reasons. One, you're going to go through some tough times when you're in college. When you are away from home for the first time, it's a little bit tough. I mean, there's a lot of fun times, but sometimes you're going to make some tough decisions, and you need that accountability. Sometimes you're going to be lonely, and you need somebody to put their arm around you and say, "Hey, I'm with you, man. I'm going through this with you. What can I do to help you?" I really think that brotherhood is a big part of what makes Sigma Phi Epsilon different than a lot of other places. So if you're looking for a place to go that where people are going to care about you, where they're going to surround you, where they're going to hold you accountable, and that's important, I think SIGAP's the place you need to be.
Absolutely. Yes, we definitely feel the same way. Preaching that to the guys going through Rush, to our guys in the chapter now, and continuing to carry that through even past college. So SIGAP means a lot to us. We're glad it still means a lot to you today. It's good to hear. You have anything?
I just want to thank you for your time and thank you for coming on today. We really appreciate it. Really glad to be able to put this podcast on and get it out there for other alumni to hear about what we're doing and honestly for new members to be able to connect with our alumni as well.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I'm proud of you guys. I know you went through some struggles, but to come back as strong as you have, you don't know what it meant to me to drive around the road several weeks ago. I think we were there for the Alabama game, and I saw Sigma Phi Epsilon back up, and I was like, "We're back." And I didn't say you're back. I said we're back, because that's me too. So I'm proud of you guys. Thank you for persevering through hard times. Thank you for surrounding each other, caring about each other, and your hard work's going to pay off.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciated this conversation. Hope to have many more in the future and hope to get you back around the house and meeting some of our other members.
Looking forward to it, Skylar. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you.